has just started swooshing at some part of the planet, and as the tropical heat began to rise, we just can't help but think of having a nice and exciting summer vacation in some of the most beautiful archipelago countries, which has some of the world's most beautiful beaches, like the mesmerizing paradise of Indonesia. Before the world was put in lockdown because of the pandemic, millions of tourists visit and enjoy the tropical climate and the jungle feels in Indonesia every year, as it is known for having some of the most beautiful tourist destinations in the world. It is that appealing to tourists that in 2019, the country was even hailed as the 9th fastest tourist sector in the world and even got a Travel and Tourism Competitiveness Index of 4.3, which means that out of 140 countries, Indonesia is the 40th country with most competitive tourism industry. White beaches, tropical fruits, rich traditions, and welcoming people. These are just some of the reasons why tourists can't help but fall in love with the enthralling beauty of the country. But don't get too excited just yet, because for today's video, we are not just going to give emphasis as to how its captivating landscape brought the entire country to the world's top of the tops. I mean, of course I just did, but let's say I was just giving you guys a nudge as we go further, deeper from its history down to its economy. So sit back and chill as we're about to dive in things you want to know about Indonesia. On top of our list, we have Indonesia's history. Just like how some of the Southeast Asian countries were, Indonesia was once just an abundant mountainous archipelago lying in between Indian Ocean and Pacific Ocean. During the ancient time, Indonesia was a home to Austronesian people who are believed to be the ancestors of the surviving human species. After several colonizations, the country's native beliefs and traditions were altered by strong European and Islamic influences. Currently, Indonesian people are divided into several religious groups, with Islamic monotheistic religion encompassing more than 85% of the country's population. The remaining fraction of the population are divided into Christian and non-Christian religious groups such as Protestant, Catholic, Hindu, Buddhist, and Confucians. The same way its neighboring country Philippines was discovered, Indonesia was found through an expedition that was organized by a European country. During the 16th century, Portuguese arrived at the island seeking to monopolize the sources of valuable spices endemic in the island such as nutmeg, cloves, pepper, and a lot more. Johan van Oldenbarneveldt, the leading statesman of the Dutch Republic along with the country's State General, organized the venture to Indonesia. The country was originally called the Dutch East India Company or the Verenigde Oost-Indische Compagnie, or in short, the VOC. Prior to the Dutch Republic settlement in the country, Indonesia was said to be originally a place where culture and tradition is rich, as evidently seen in some of its historical artifacts. One which is very famous is the Prajna Paramita of Java, a sculpture depicting some native Indonesian culture and ancient Indonesian beliefs. Industrialization. Since early 70s until before the Asian currency crisis of 1997, Indonesia has already been drawing attention from its neighboring country for its impressive economic performance. In 1993, Indonesia was even recognized by the World Bank as one of the strongest economies in East Asia, along with 4 growing Asian tigers: Taiwan, Hong Kong, Singapore, and South Korea. One of the greatest foundation of Indonesia's strong economy is the support it gets from growing industries, particularly manufacturing industry, which is the major driving force behind the country's economy. Slowly, the country transitioned from agriculture-based economy to manufacturing and service-based one. Eventually, grander and taller buildings and establishments started popping up, especially at the busiest area of the country. Modern trade centers, contemporary designed commercial buildings, and even more manufacturing plants complemented the vast green field of agricultural crops and wide tropical forests. But unfortunately, Indonesia was one among those countries who were mostly affected during the 1997 to 1998 Asian financial crisis, and the country had to go through extreme economic struggle. Since Indonesia was still in its developing stage back then, one of the major concerns was how the growing industries will cope up with the crisis. Luckily, Because of resilient manufacturing industry, Indonesia was able to recover. Now, Indonesia's economy depends on the following top-performing industries: agriculture, export, manufacturing, and service industries. Poverty. Sadly, poverty remains an ingrained problem in Indonesia, despite the country's success in cutting its poverty rate to a single-digit level for the first time in 2018. COVID-19 has not only brought the economy to its knees, but also reversed decades of progress in Southeast Asia's largest economy. In Indonesia, close to 5 million more people may fall below the poverty line by year-end. The pandemic has pushed 2.76 million more Indonesians into poverty, bringing the country poverty rate to the highest level since March 2017. Amid soaring job losses and business closure last year, the number of citizens living below the poverty line reached 27.55 million in September 2020, up significantly from 24.79 million a year earlier, according to data from Statistics Indonesia. As a result, the poverty rate climbed to 10.19% from 9.22% over the same period. Growing inequality is one important problem for a developing country, and Indonesia is no exception. Narrowing the gap between those at the top and the bottom of income distribution has become one of the government's main concerns. In the past 2 decades, the gap between the richest and the rest in Indonesia has grown faster than in any other country in Southeast Asia. It is now the 6th country of greatest wealth inequality in the world. But what does this mean for ordinary people? The poorest citizens, particularly women, receive low wages and faces insecurities at work. Access to public utilities and infrastructure such as electricity or decent road is unequal, with rural areas less provided for than urban ones. The vast majority of the land is owned by big corporations and rich people who get all the benefits. Likewise, the education system is underfunded and there are barriers to equal access, which means many Indonesian workers cannot access higher skilled and higher paid jobs. The growing inequality is undermining the fight against poverty, putting a brake on economic growth and threatening social cohesion. International trade. The government's deregulation drive aimed at raising foreign investment, as it is expected to help the tourism industry as well. Indonesia has enacted new laws relating to finance, its SPS regime, export financing, special economic zones, agriculture, fisheries, transportations, mineral and coal mining, and tourism. All of these to strengthen trade and investment policies. Currently, Indonesia is also working to improve its economic relation with neighboring countries, both bilaterally and through ASEAN participation. Indonesia's medium-term trade policy goals are to boost non-oil exports, strengthen the domestic market, and manage basic product supply, as well as to strengthen national distribution channels. To that end, it has listed the 10 priority items that will be the focus of its trade discussions. Monetary policy. Indonesia's central bank, Bank Indonesia, agreed to cut its benchmark interest rate by 25 basis points to 3.50% at its most recent monetary policy meeting, which ended on February 18, 2021, a historically low level for Southeast Asia's largest economy. Rates on the deposits and lending facilities were also reduced by 25 basis points to 2.75% and 4.25% respectively. In conjunction with several other banks, Indonesia's policy changes, as well as less ambitious outlook for Indonesia's economic growth in 2021. It appears that the central bank is putting on the brakes a little more to fight the ongoing economic recession. Economic history. In recent decades, Indonesia has been viewed as one of the Southeast Asia's successful, highly performing, and newly industrializing economies, following the trail of the Asian tigers, Hong Kong, Singapore, South Korea, and Taiwan. Although Indonesia's economy grew with impressive speed during the 80s and the 90s, it experienced considerable trouble after the financial crisis of 1997, which led to significant political reforms. Today, Indonesia's economy is recovering, but it is difficult to say when all its problems will be solved. Even though Indonesia can still be considered part of the developing world, it has rich and versatile past in the economic as well as the cultural and political sense. Anne Booth has even characterized the economic history of Indonesia with somewhat melancholy phrase, a history of missed opportunities. One may compare this with J. Plouvier's History of Southeast Asia in the 20th Century, which is entitled A Century of Unfulfilled Expectations. The missed opportunities refers to the fact that despite its rich natural resources and great variety of cultural traditions, the Indonesian economy has been underperforming for a large period of its history. For various reasons, Indonesia suffered from severe incidents that prohibited further expansion. These incidents often originated in the internal institutional or political spheres, although external influences such as the 1930s depression also had their ill-fated impact on the vulnerable export economy. Another vigorous debate concerns the character of and the motives for Dutch colonial expansion. Dutch imperialism can be viewed as having a rather complex mix of political, economic, and military motives which influence decisions about colonial borders, establishing political control in order to exploit oil and other natural resources and preventing local uprising. Economic statistics. The largest economy in Southeast Asia, Indonesia, a diverse archipelago nation of more than 300 ethnic groups, has charted impressive economic growth since overcoming the Asian financial crisis of the late 1990s. Today, Indonesia is the world's fourth most populous nation, the world's 10th largest economy in terms of purchasing power parity, and a member of the G20. Furthermore, Indonesia has made enormous gains in poverty reduction, cutting the poverty rate by more than half since 1999 to 9.78% in 2020. Prior to the COVID-19 crisis, Indonesia was able to maintain consistent economic growth, recently qualifying the country to reach upper middle income status. Considerable development challenges remains in Indonesia. In addition, the global crisis caused by the COVID-19 pandemic brings unprecedented complication for Indonesia to achieve its development goals. Between March and September 2020, official statistics reported an increase in the national poverty rate from 9.78% to 10.19%, translating into an increase in the number of poor from 26.42 million to 27.55 million, out of a population of 270.2 million, turning back 3 years of a progress in poverty reduction. Tourism. Government's deregulation drive aimed at raising foreign investment as it is expected to help the tourism industry as well. At the moment, according to the World Bank's Human Capital Index, Indonesia's next generation will only be 54% as productive as it could have been with full health and complete education. To respond to the shock of the COVID-19 pandemic, the government implemented emergency fiscal packages equivalent to 3.8% of the GDP in 2020 into 4.2% of GDP in 2021. To deal with the health impact, provide relief to households and firms, and support the vaccine rollout and the recovery. The World Bank is supporting the Indonesia's COVID-19 emergency response, including enhancing social assistance and healthcare system, while also strengthening the resiliency of the financial sector. There you have it, guys. I hope this video helped you answer some of your questions about the beautiful country of Indonesia. Sayonara! Oh wait, that doesn't sound Indonesian.